the ones in italic. This is my writing. These profound words, you are there with me? Page 1. Okay. These profound words of salutation, penned by Acharya Dharmakirti, 6th century Common Era, who was considered to be the father of Buddhist logic, were perceived as sublime by Acharya Dharmakirti, himself a great logician and philosopher saint. On apprehending them, the desire arose in Acharya Dharmakirti to be involved in the salutation passage, and thereby inspired him to compose an entire chapter based on them, chapter 2 of Pramāṇavārttika. The chapter reveals a plethora of rich and intricate principles of logic and epistemology that underscore the salient features of Buddhist metaphysical thought on critical topics such as rebirth, efficacy of nirvana in Buddhahood, and so forth, which otherwise would forever have remained concealed. Pramāṇavārttika, especially its second chapter, has tremendous implications for the practice of Buddhism. An understanding of it convinces the practitioner of the rationality underlying the teachings of the Buddha and consequently advances her practice to a deeper level. Okay. With this mind, then at times, I'm just giving you the warning, just be with me, bear with me. At times, some of the parts may become a little technical. Other times, it may become a little dry, intellectual rigor, intellectual exchanges. Just simply bear with me. Just enjoy being a part of every moment there. Whether it's like a dry intellectual thing, without these things, we can never think of. Say, for example, it explains about what does it mean by valid mind? What does it mean by valid cognition? And then it tries to explain in a very precise way, or like a psychology, or like a cognitive science. And it may turn out to be like a very dry intellectual inquiry. No, this is so precious, so precious. But it does have all these elements there. So that makes this chapter 2 so rich. Okay, with that in mind, keep in mind that there are 283 stanzas, right? Okay. This chapter has 2 parts. I'm reading. This chapter has 2 parts. Establishing the Omniscient One as the reliable guide. 2 parts meaning it has 2 main outlines. One is establishing the Omniscient One as the reliable guide, meaning the Buddha Shakyamuni is the Omniscient One. He is the reliable guide. He is the one to whom to follow, after whom to follow for you to achieve the greatest happiness. I say, you meet with so many teachers. In fact, I'll give you just one example, right? Then it is up to you to just extrapolate it according to the situation. Try to widen the circle of the understanding. At the time of the Buddha, there was one couple, very young couple, and both of them very much inclined towards spiritual path, seeking spirituality. Then both of them decided to look for teachers. And then the couple, they decided to go to look for the teachers separately, on their own. The young boy go in his own way, and the young girl go in her own ways. Okay. Then they found 2 teachers. I'm not going to tell you who the teachers were. Each of them found their own respective teachers. Right? Imagine that's the first day. That's the first day of meeting with the teacher. And the 2 teachers, what they teach, these 2 are just contradictory. They are in total contradiction, right? And how do you discern that this teacher, my teacher, is the accurate one? How do you discern that? Right? How do you discern? Just tell me. How do you discern? Okay, by just checking the validity, just checking how authoritative the teachings are, right? Okay, how many of the people do that? There are so many gurus, there are so many people there, right? I'm following this tradition, this guru, like this. How many of them really examine the validity of the words of these teachers? How many do that? This is a question. Because of which, two of them, the boy and the girl, they went separately to look for their own teachers, and the boy met with the Buddha Shakyamuni. And the girl met with another terrible teacher. And the girl, after a few days, she was just, what happened? There was a nightmare going, the girl. And then she lost her faith in spirituality altogether. And the boy was so happy. And then after maybe like a few months, the boy and girl, once more they met. And both of them were sharing the experience with their own teachers. And the girl said, no, now I will not at all go in search of spirituality anymore. It's enough. Because I've lost my faith in spirituality altogether. And the boy said, no. No, because the boy is still in the spiritual path. And the girl said, no. And the boy said, just come to meet with my teacher. He said, no, enough now. Teachers, is enough. I'm fed up with teachers. Then because the girl went through all these experiences, and the boy said, it doesn't matter. You don't have to pay respect to my teacher. Just come. Just come and stay there for 1 or 2 days as a guest. You don't have to believe what my teacher says. Then the girl said, okay, if this is the condition, then I can go. Then she went there, seeing the Buddha. She was just mesmerized. She could feel the love and affection from the Buddha. She's just simply mesmerized. Listening to the teaching of the Buddha simply took her to a very different domain. And then eventually she became an Arhat. She became Arhat. Okay, so what I'm saying is that this is the text, how this text begins. It says that this chapter has 2 parts. 1, establishing the omniscient one is the reliable guide, that this person, seen as a teacher, seen as the omniscient by his followers, he is the reliable guide. 1. Number 2, establishing meaning proving, giving the reasons that he's a reliable guide, not to be followed that, oh, he's a reliable guide. Yes, you are a reliable guide. Not like that. He's a reliable guide. How? Then first study all the reasons to see which would give you a deep conviction in that. Number 2, the purpose for praising the Buddha for being born as a reliable guide. Not like a reliable guide, not as they say, oh, he is the prince or he is the king because he is born as a prince. Not like that. For example, like the present day, okay, I have no political agenda, don't worry. Say the present day, the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi. Initially, he started as a very simple boy. Now, what his agenda is now today, I don't want to go in there. But how he became as a Prime Minister, he just started from a very simple beginning, simple start. Likewise, this one who is revered as the Buddha, who is revered the omniscient one, began as a very young prince known as Prince Siddhartha. Then he started from this as an ordinary person. From there he started the journey. Then eventually he became the Buddha. So the purpose of praising the Buddha in this stanza, which praised the Buddha, the purpose of praising the Buddha for what? For being born as the reliable guide. Not as the reliable guide since the beginning. No. He was ordinary one time. Then he was born. Born meaning he was initially an ordinary person. Then eventually he became. Right? He was slowly born born meaning he became transformed into the reliable guide. Okay. The purpose. So why Acharya Dignaga said he was transformed? What's the reason? 1, to inspire us that we will also become reliable guide. We will also become omniscient one if we put concerted effort and follow the steps the way Prince Siddhartha followed. Okay. Then the first part, reference to first part, first meaning. Okay, this If you read the original text, you will not find the reference number, outlines, you will not find anything. Outlines, we should be feeling grateful to Khedr Rinpoche, the second heir to Lama Tsongkhapa. And the references, you will be feeling grateful to this guy. References 1, 2, 3, go to reference 1, reference 2, all these things, you will be feeling grateful to this guy. Okay, so this would make things so easy for you, right? Okay, so that way, you see that, we read from the beginning to learn as to how to use this book. Say, reference 1, this chapter has 2 parts. Establishing the omniscient one as a reliable guide, and the purpose for praising the Buddha for being born as a reliable guide, which means that this chapter can be understood by understanding these two outlines. And then where will you go for the first outline, establishing the omniscient one as a reliable guide, then cross-reference, go to reference number 2. Whereas for the second one is going to be just downway is not down is not just there. So for the second, the purpose of praising the Buddha for being born as a reliable guide, what is the reference number? Cross-reference number? 142. So you have to go down. So this section will come all the way down. 142, where is it? Reference number 142. Page number? Page number 37. Let's see. Page number 37. Reference number what? Don't mix the two. Stanza, verse number and the reference number. Reference number, it says reference number 142. Where is reference number 142? 72. Okay, Venerable Ratnala got it. Okay, 72 is almost like the end. Yes. 72, reference number 142. So these stanzas will come from, something's missing? Is there? Okay. What we are covering there? Page number 2, point number 2, the purpose for praising the Buddha for being born as a reliable guide. So that you will get there in page number 72. Right? So this is how we are to use this text. So that it becomes very easy to go here and then if you study this for some time, say twice, 3 times, 4 times, then this text with the reference number, then the verse number, all these things will make your studies so convenient and easy. Okay. Reference 2. First, establishing the omniscient one as reliable guide has 2 parts. So this comes from where? It comes from the reference, cross-reference number 1, from the top 1, right? So where the numbers are given, this has a great significance. Okay, this has 2 parts. Identifying the illustration of reliable guide, following the explanation of the meaning of having been born, having been transformed into a reliable guide. Number 2, explaining how the Buddha transformed himself from an ordinary state to a reliable guide. Now these steps, explaining how the Buddha transformed himself from an ordinary person, eventually to a reliable guide for all sentient beings through favorable courses. Like what? Following the explanation of the meaning of the remaining 4 points. What are the 4 points? Altruistic one with a motivation to liberate all sentient beings from samsara, number 1. Then number 2, teacher of the wisdom of selflessness as means to liberate all beings, number 2. Number 3, Sugata, one gone to bliss, the one who is freed from samsara through integrating the wisdom of selflessness himself. Then number 4, and protector of all sentient beings by teaching the path of the wisdom of selflessness to the sentient beings. So these are the 4 main points to be covered in order to finally establish that the Buddha Shakyamuni is the reliable guide. Okay. Reference number 3 first. Reference number 3. How many points are there? In this number 2, how many points are there? There are 4 points, right? 4 points. Explaining how the Buddha transformed himself from an ordinary state to a reliable guide for a sentient being through favorable states, following the explanation of the meaning of the remaining 4 points. Altruist 1 with the motivation to liberate. Okay, this one. Number 1, identifying the illustration of a reliable guide, following the explanation of the meaning. The meaning of having evolved into a reliable guide has 2 parts. Okay, now the text says that this Prince Siddhartha has evolved to become the reliable guide, having evolved into a reliable guide. So this has 2 parts. 1, the definition of valid cognition in general. Number 2, indicating that the Buddha also qualifies this definition, meaning that reliable guide means someone who is reliable. You're getting it? Reliable guide means someone who is reliable. Reliable means someone who's valid. Someone he's so valid. So valid. What he says and what the reality is, these 2 tally. So valid. So for this, we need to know what exactly is meant by validity. What is the meaning of reliable? What is the meaning of valid mind? So someone to be a valid guide, the person's thinking should be valid mind. So we should know what does it mean by valid mind, number 1. So the valid mind in general. Okay, how many of you have banged against a mirror? Why did you bang against a mirror? You find it fun? You didn't realize because you did not have the valid mind. You did not have the valid mind to see that it is a mirror. Right? You have a non-valid mind or invalid mind. What is the invalid mind? Thinking the mirror as an empty space. Right? There is the invalid mind. So this invalid mind or the confusion gives rise to the misery of the pain of banging against the mirror. Whereas the valid mind will simply make you turn away from the mirror. So it will solve the misery. Valid mind takes you to happiness and invalid mind takes you to miseries. So for that, we need to know what is valid mind. And the Buddha said that finally the root cause of all our miseries is ignorance, the invalid mind. Right? For that we need to know what is valid and what is non-valid. Okay, so it says that definition of valid cognition. What is meant by valid cognition? Then after knowing what exactly is meant by valid cognition or valid mind, then indicating that the Buddha also qualifies this definition. The Buddha Shakyamuni, he also qualifies this definition of validity, which means that he is a valid. If he's valid, then he becomes reliable. Right? Say, if you have a mind which sees a mirror reflection as the real, is this a reliable mind or non-reliable mind? Non-reliable mind. Why non-reliable? By relying on that, it will take you to misery. Right? Whereas, if you see the mirror reflection as a mirror reflection, that mind, is that a reliable mind or not reliable mind? That is a reliable mind. In what way it is reliable? Because what it sees and the reality is to tally. Because of this, because of the tallying of what it sees and what the reality is, then you can avoid the misery of banging against the mirror. Right? So therefore, in Buddhism, there's a tremendous emphasis on the need to remove the ignorance by cultivating the wisdom. So for that, we need to know what wisdom is. We need to know what is valid cognition. Okay. Now, let's see. Now this small passage, the next reading, this small passage is from Khedru Rinpoche's note. Khedru Rinpoche's big commentary on this text. This commentary is not in English, but this is a small extract. The importance of learning about the valid cognition. He says, gaining insight into the phenomena of higher states meaning favorable births, like say human birth, the deva birth, then the wealth, the position, then the proper intelligence, good intelligence, they're all required for our happiness. So these are known as high states, and definite goodness of nirvana and Buddhahood. Definite goodness or ultimate goodness of nirvana, Buddhahood, along with a complete means, how to achieve these means. Say, for example, for wealth, how important is wealth for us? It is important. The Buddha said that wealth is so important. Without the wealth, then we can't say without wealth, say if you are so poor, then we will not get the time to study this text. We have to go in search of the food, right? So, therefore, the wealth is important. Then, what is the cause of the wealth? What is the means to achieve the wealth? It is by the practice of generosity. It is not through corruption. Corruption is a quick way. Corruption is a quick way, but this is actually what ruins us, what separates us from wealth in the future lifetimes. In fact, this corruption, it is like a quick fix for the ripening of the generosity that you did in the past. Generosity which you did in the past, you just, with a quick fix of corruption, you make it ripen so fast in the form of huge amount of money, wealth, right? At the same time, in the process of ripening that, you are accumulating so much of negative karma of being deprived from wealth in the future lifetimes. Okay, so the corruption is not the cause. What is the cause? Generosity. The means to wealth is generosity. So likewise, all the good things of the favorable states is the virtues. So what are the virtues? What are the means to achieve them? One. And then what are the means to achieve the definite goodness, nirvana, Buddhahood? So to know all these things, we have to have the valid mind to know all these things. So for that, we need to know what is a valid mind. Okay, so it says that gaining insight into the phenomena of higher states and the definite goodness of nirvana and Buddhahood, along with their complete means, what are the means to achieve them, depends on valid cognition. Depends on valid cognition. So to avoid the immediate pains, we should be removed of the ignorance by the valid cognition to see the reality as it is, which is also known as wisdom. And whereas to achieve the lasting goal like Buddhahood, nirvana and so forth, we need to know all the paths. So all these paths should be known so precisely and accurately. For that also we need valid cognition or valid minds. Amongst these numerous valid cognitions, the one that is error-free, which is freed of error, mistakes, with respect to knowing all phenomena, is the Buddha's omniscient one. Of all the valid minds, we also have the valid mind. Say, is it raining outside? Not now. Okay. So how to verify that whether your thought that it's not raining outside is valid or not? How do we verify that? You have to go out and see whether it's raining, right? Likewise, and what we have is a valid mind. That's true, but it also has the element of error within our mind. Say, how many of you are thirsty? I'm also a little thirsty. Then what I do, I use my valid mind to see where the water is. And then if I pick up this rosary thinking that this is the water, this is an invalid mind, and this will not help me to remove my thirst. So what I do is that I have to depend on the valid mind to see the water as a water and pick it up. Right? Okay, my thirst is quenched. Because by dependence on the valid mind of seeing the water as water. Although this is valid mind, but still even that mind is defiled with error. What kind of error? I see this water as a dream-like water or objectively real water there. I see this as a objectively water there. So this seeing the water as a water, from that point of view is correct, but it has the element of error. The error is that it is seen as objectively real while it is just dreamlike in true sense. And of course, how it is dreamlike, don't ask this question at the moment. This will take us another 10 days. Okay, these are the small things. Maybe the day 2, day 4, day 5, I may have to rush through. But at this point, the little things, we have to be very clear. So if you don't have these things, then the following will just be waste. Okay, say, what is the degree of a compassion? Right? If you see a beggar and who is very hungry, would you feel compassionate or not? If you have some extra biscuits, would you give to them? Yes. And if somebody else, if you don't have the biscuits, if somebody else has extra biscuits, wants to give to that beggar, would you agree to that or not? You agree. Okay. Then then the other person, maybe your mother, feels so compassionate to the beggar, and then started giving, say, 100 rupees. Do you agree with your mother? Yes, no? You may agree. Okay, 100 rupees is fine. Then the mother says, oh, this poor child, why is she not going to school? Then the mother is thinking of sending the child to the school. You have any problem? You're in the middle program. And which school you're going? You're going to a public school, or say government school. And the mother sends the same child to the same government school as you are. And she's just excellent in studies. Very brilliant. And the mother became even more enthusiastic to send her to Harvard University. Right? And then would you still agree with her? Very likely not. Right? So this is the indication that the previous compassion that you had, previous compassion is actually a not full-fledged compassion. It has the error of selfishness there. Right? So likewise, my knowledge of this water is water. Although this is a valid cognition, but it is defiled by some other errors. Whereas the valid mind, which is totally free of all defilements, is known as the omniscient mind, which the Buddhas have. Only when you become a Buddha, then you will have this mind. Otherwise, before that, somehow your mind is defiled. Okay. We'll read this and we'll stop here. Amongst these, line 3 of the second paragraph, page 3, amongst these numerous valid cognitions, the one that is error-free with respect to knowing all phenomena is the Buddha's omniscience alone. What then constitutes the definition of valid cognition? Then what exactly is meant by valid cognition? If the Buddha's mind is the most valid or the most refined version of the valid cognition, then what exactly does it mean by valid cognition? So this is how the chapter begins. So this piece is extracted from Khidru Rinpoche's note from the Ocean Reasoning. Ocean Reasoning is the commentary on this the whole chapter 2. Okay, we'll stop here for today. It's already 8:20, right? Okay, we will end with the just quick dedication prayer, stanza 1 or 2s. Let's turn to the prayer book, page 74. So this light of the wisdom, let us imagine that it proliferates infinite number of times, and light of the compassion also proliferates infinite number of times, be shared with all the dear Mother Sentient beings, so that the darkness of self-grasping ignorance and a self-centered attitude are eliminated, that they experience the boundless happiness eternally. Also let us dedicate the merits thus gathered, that His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all the great teachers, these great, incredible compassionate teachers, such as Lama Sopa Rinpoche, they all live long and that their wishes are fulfilled spontaneously. With that in mind, let's turn to page 74 and read the dedication prayers. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind of full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge to the Triple Gem. I confess the negativities individually. I rejoice in the virtues of all the beings. I hold the precious Buddha in my heart. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the Supreme Bodhicitta that is not erased and arising grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase forevermore. Chanju semjo rinpoche ma ge pa na ge gyuro ji ge ba nyam ba me ba ya kone kondo pe bara ishu. I dedicate the merits thus gathered towards the realization of the decent prayers of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 3 times, and to the upholding of the Dharma of teaching and the realization. May in all lives, through the force of this merit, never separate from the 4 wheels of the Maha in a vehicle, and accomplish all the stages of the path, renunciation, bodhicitta, perfect view, and the 2 stages. The path of union of emptiness and compassion is lucidly explained by the protector of the Dharma and the beings of the snowland. You are the lotus holder Tenzin Gyatso. We supplicate you that your wishes are fulfilled spontaneously. May the operations of evil thoughts and deeds of the negative forces of humans and non-humans who herb or marriage through perverted prayers against the teachings of the Buddhas be totally vanquished through the power of the truth of the three jewels. Throughout my future lifetimes, may I always be guided by Manjushri and be able to uphold the Dharma in general and the teachings on dependent origination in particular, even through cosmic life.